Hey, welcome to the Knitpicks podcast. This is Lee. I'm the books and patterns graphic designer for Knitpicks. And as usual, I'm here with my friend Stacey.
Hi, I'm Stacey. I'm the outreach director at Knitpicks. How are you doing, Lee?
I'm all right. How are you doing?
Oh, pretty good. I'm just sitting here knitting a sock like I usually am.
Nice.
Trying to keep my hands busy so Andi doesn't yell at me for making noise. Which is, I apologize for anyone who hears any kind of bangs. That's usually me. But so I'm knitting a sock, keep my hands busy.
Nice. What yarn are you using?
Oh, it is Hawthorne DK.
Ooh, DK weight sock.
This should surprise no one how much I love Hawthorne DK. I love regular Hawthorne. And I was just like, it's getting cold. It's super chilly right now. And I need some nice heavy socks. So I grabbed a skein of the Color Springfield, which is where my mom lives. And I am knitting some just plain socks, plain Jane socks.
Nice. Sounds cozy.
What have you been up to?
Right now, I'm knitting a hat, which I can tell you about. It's my pattern Stripes on Stripes that was released, I think, last spring. It was designed for Felici. And it was designed for Felici held double in two different colors. So you're holding each color double with itself to just basically make it into a worsted weight. And then you're using the two different colors striped with each other. So Stripes on Stripes, Felici self-striping, striped with each other. So Felici isn't on the site anymore. It kind of got replaced for now into the future with Felicini, which works great as a self-striping yarn on a sock. Unfortunately, it won't work as a self-striping yarn on a hat because the stripes are much more narrow. So if you were to use it on a hat, it may get one round per color, maybe, but probably not quite. And one round per color or per stripe on a hat, it wouldn't work with this pattern, even if it did get all the way around. The pattern wouldn't look how it's supposed to because it needs to be more than one round. So I did some brainstorming last week in the office and thinking, what can we replace it with? This Felicini won't work. What else is self-striping? We were thinking about chroma maybe, but chroma wouldn't work either with this pattern. It wouldn't look how it's supposed to in chroma. But Brava Stripe is a worsted weight yarn, and the stripe width is like perfect. So I'm knitting up a sample in Brava Stripe, and I am going to rewrite the pattern a bit because right now the pattern is specifically written for Felici, so it's all like held double. It's like all 4 strands or all 2 strands, and so it doesn't really. I can't just say use Brava Stripe, like it's going to be kind of confusing. So I will be doing a pattern update and rewriting it with the new sample, but it's looking great. The stripe width is great on the hat.
Awesome.
I'm doing like the turquoise tonal stripes with the gray and white tonal stripes, so it's a neutrally like just basically turquoise and green is only like color.
My dream colors.
It's looking good. It's not I like it. It's not necessarily colorway combination I would usually gravitate towards. Not a big tonal grays person.
Oh, well, I am.
So I'm excited about it. Yeah.
Yay.
That's what I have on the needles right now. I've been doing a lot of knitting outside of work too.
Oh.
That I can
tell
you all about if you're interested.
Well, you probably will because I don't have anything to contribute other than my, poor little Hawthorne DK socks. And then, of course, Axiom, which we'll do a little check-in later with Andi and I talking about it. But so let's hear all of your fun projects.
Yeah. So I had mentioned maybe a couple podcasts ago that I like having a plain stockinette round and around and around sweater on the needles for movies, for like movie theaters, movies with subtitles, or when I don't want to look at my knitting at all. And I had mentioned that I was like getting close to finishing the body on my current one. So I was swatching for a new one, which I'm going to use Hawthorne DK for.
Yay.
So I kind of put that on hold for a while because I had left the patterns in the yarn at work when I was homesick for 3 weeks. So I just kind of ignored it for 3 weeks. But then I got the stuff. I brought it home. I washed my swatch, measured it. Swatch is not good. I'm way off. On my first swatch, I was way off. So I had to do another swatch, go down 2 needle sizes. I guess I was knitting a bit loosely with that yarn combo, and yarn and needles. But I finished the other swatch last night, and I'm going to wash it and cross my fingers that it's good so I can get started. I brought the yarn home, so I'm planning on getting started on that sweater this weekend. Because over last weekend, I officially finished the body of the current movie sweater, which is in Hawthorne Hill Double. So it's actually very similar to Hawthorne DK. It's basically like Hawthorne worsted by holding it double to get the worsted weight. So the body is playing around and around, and then I had to decide, like, okay, what am I going to do? Because I'm not using a pattern. I had cast this on a couple years ago just to like have it as like something I could just pick up when I wanted it and just like ignore it most of the time. So I did this like cabled edging, and then I just have been knitting the body. And then I had a plan that I was going to do some kind of raglan thing, like improvised raglan shaping for the top and just keep it like pretty simple. But then Stacey, you and I had a conversation a couple weeks ago in the office about this sweater from the show Only Murders in the Building.
I know that sweater. I am obsessed with that sweater.
Yeah. So if you've seen the show Only Murders in the Building with Selena Gomez, you might know what we're talking about, although she wears a lot of great sweaters, so
yes,
you might be picturing a different sweater. There's actually a whole rant where one of the characters like rants about her amazing sweaters. So I was like, oh, love it, love it. So there's this one that's a orangey red. I pulled up a screenshot so I can describe it really well. It's like a dark orange / orange red kind of color. And it's entirely cables. So cables everywhere.
Yes.
Cables.
This is why I was obsessed with it.
So the cables start out wide at the bottom. It looks like maybe like 6/6 stitch cables at the bottom. And then they move inwards, and they look like they get smaller gradually the entire way. So I think if you were to look at the side seams, or if you were to look at the back, there'd be like cables being introduced from the sides, because it looks like they kind of go underneath the arm and they like wrap around her body somehow. It's really interesting. I was like staring at it in the show trying to figure out what's going on, like in the underarm area, because it looks like new cables kind of start under the arms, because the ones at the bottom get smaller. And then as you get into the yoke, then you just have cables all the way around that by the time you're in the yoke, they're probably like 4/4, 3/3. Anyway, they keep getting smaller. They keep getting smaller and smaller all the way up until you get to the very top. They're like 1/1. So the cables they're all like decreasing at the same rate. So they just all get smaller. Okay. So I was very into this.
This is how I know I work with knitters, is because we were all staring at it. Because Alexis came over and heard us and was like, heard us talking about it because, oh, that sweater. Yeah. For those who want to find this sweater.
Like, decipher. We'll put a link in the show notes. Yeah, it's in the newest season 3, which I binge watched when I was sick. So we will put a show notes link to like a picture of it, so you can like see a picture of it. But it's cool to see it in motion, because when she's moving around, you can like try to like get glimpses of all of it.
I spent most of that episode staring at it, trying to figure it out.
Same. So I can't make that sweater out of the sweater I already finished the body for, obviously, because the cables go all the way across the whole body. But I got obsessed with the idea of like cables getting smaller to shape the yoke, which I've seen other patterns that do that. I've thought about doing that before, but I was like, well, I have this blank canvas yoke. Like, I have the body done. I haven't started the yoke. I can do anything. Like, I can do anything I want with this yoke. I might as well do something fun with cables, since I'm thinking about it. So I designed, not designing it in like sizes so other people can make it. I'm just designing it for myself as like an improvised / just design for my size only kind of thing. So I like charted it out and figured it out with my stitch count and how many cables and how many stitches I need and all this stuff. And I provisionally cast on for the sleeves because I don't know how the finished sweater is going to like sit on my body. And like,
Yeah.
I didn't want to knit the sleeves first and have the sleeves end up being too long or too short, depending on how the sweater fits me.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to do the sleeves last. So provisional cast on, joined it around with the, bound off some for the underarms. Now I have all the stitches on the needles around the yoke, and I am introducing asymmetrically, so it looks kind of random, one cable at a time. So I'm doing the front and the back the same as each other. One cable and then a knit all around, and then another cable and then knit all around, so that the cables kind of act as decreases because the cables are pulling the stitches together tighter, right? So if I introduced all the cables at the same time, it would decrease in way too tightly all at the same time. But my hope is that introducing the cables one at a time just has like a kind of gradual decrease for the beginning of the yoke. And then by the time all the cables have been introduced and you have cables all the way across, then I can start doing some decreases within the cables and making them smaller. So I'm doing braided cables, like 3/3/3. So it's 9 stitches total.
Oh, wow.
With 1 stitch in between. So it's like a nice clean 10 stitch repeat. And my plan is to turn the 3/3/3 into 2/2/2 by decreasing like one at a time in the braid, and they'll get smaller. And I'm not sure what I'll do, as I might go all the way up to 1/1/1, or I might do something else. I'm not sure.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, so I'm really hoping it works.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, if it works, I'm. It's like the project I'm like obsessively into right now that I'm like putting other things on hold because I'm excited to see if it works. But I also am wanting to get that Hawthorne DK one, get the ribbing finished so that I can start taking it to movies and stuff, because I'm planning on going to a movie on Sunday, maybe. So I want to have something to take with me.
Awesome.
So those are kind of my 2. And in case you listened last week and I said, I will finish my Andi and Treasure sweater by the time this podcast airs. Well, I got distracted by this one and the other one, and so I didn't actually seam it. I have finished all the knitting. I just haven't seamed it or knit the button.
Oh, wow.
But it's,
you're so close.
It's in pieces. And then my swish pops is I did start the front panel. So back's done, sleeves are done, front panel's on the needles.
Nice.
Got a lot going on.
That's fun. Way more than me, unfortunately. I keep looking, and in fact, I keep buying patterns, which is just ridiculous. And then there's also patterns that I'm very excited for coming out in when you listen to this in a couple of months, but I work in advance, a long ways in advance. So there's so many things I'm so excited for, and I just don't have. I don't know. I haven't been motivated. I was sewing most of the last weekend, nothing particularly exciting. And then, I don't know. I think we just haven't been watching a lot of movies or TV lately. We just kind of been vegging out. The time change is really messing with me.
Yeah.
I know it's been a couple of weeks, but it's been,
it like affects you for like a month.
Yeah. And it came at the same, I mean, it started at the same time as the big sale, and we're up early. At least I am been up early, and I don't know. I've just been kind of I feel like in a slug. I've been a slug. That's all it is. I'm just going to work on my round and round Hawthorne DK socks and enjoy. So
you've been working on the Axiom too. Right?
Yes.
But that's just kind of like same, like repetitive.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that I think I've been working on the Hawthorne DK socks just because I need them for another project I'm working on that will not be out for several months. So, because again, can't talk about those kind of things. But my Axiom is really nice to work with. I've like kind of pretty much memorized it, so I know where I am when I pick it up. But I don't know if I said this last time or whatever. I feel like my sweater is not growing. Have you gotten to that point where you feel like your sweater isn't growing, or your sleeves aren't growing when you're knitting? You feel like you've been knitting on it forever. And it's like, I swear when I measured this, it said 10 inches the last time I measured it. And I know I knit more than that. So, But we'll do a quick check-in. As I said, I think I'm about 10 to 12 inches in my body. I'm knitting it in the round, so I've got the back and front. I've already finished the sleeves, so that is my saving grace. So hopefully I will get to where I split for the front and back. I think I still have a few more inches. Man, it just seems like I've been knitting on it forever. Andi, since you're spying on us, do you want to check? How are you doing on your Axiom?
I am doing pretty good. I have to laugh though when you were like feeling behind because you do already have your sleeves done. So like you're almost done. I have not knit my sleeve. I am running behind, but I think I can get caught up. So we record a little bit in advance. But Thanksgiving is coming up soon.
Yeah. Tomorrow when you listen to this.
Tomorrow when you listen, but it's not tomorrow for us. So I'm frantically trying to get I've divided my front and back because I knit my body in the round as well. And I'm frantically trying to get the cable section done before I go visit my family for Thanksgiving because my parents live in a kind of rural area. So mostly what we do is like sit around and play board games or like watch movies. When I go visit. So like there's usually a lot of knitting time. Like I always knit between my turn and when we play board games.
Yep.
And like obviously movie knitting, but it needs to be stockinette. So I'm trying to get the cables done. And I feel like I can probably get, if I don't finish my back before I go to my parents' house, I still think I can get the back and the sleeve done at their house. Like I'm very confident about how much knitting I will get done over Thanksgiving. So I'm like, just got to get the cables done because those are not a mindless knit. You have to actually look at them.
Yeah. Well, I know it's like I'll like get in my mindless knit mode or watching a TV show or something. And then I'll be like, come to my stitch marker that marks my where my cable starts. And I'm like, oh, got a cable. I have to look at my cable. Like, okay, did I cable in the last row or is it this row? And which one is it?
Yeah.
But it just takes a second. But it's a half mindless.
But the knit along runs until December 15th, so there's still plenty of time.
Yeah, you're fine.
And since both of us are knitting in the round, there's a lot less finishing to do.
Yeah.
So we don't need that time buffer. I created a little bit of a schedule for people who are doing the knit along, and I left a lot of December for like seaming. Just thinking of myself in seaming, in which I procrastinate on it forever and then do it very slowly. So I was like, gotta build out a lot of time for seaming. But like it also leaves time for catching up if you are behind because you knit up socks or another sweater during the knit along like Stacey and I did.
Right. And then with our co-knit along participants, I know Elena finished, and you'll probably see her sweater showing up on the feeds pretty soon, and it is gorgeous.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about anyone else.
I think Carlene is also finished.
I'm not shocked.
At all. The shocking thing is that Regan is not, but he's been taking like a slow and steady approach. He also
knitting multiple other sweaters.
Yeah, he's multiple like, other sweaters.
Fingering weight stranded color work all over sweaters.
Yeah.
Like what?
I don't think that sweater was fingering weight, but yes, like
it looks like fingering weight. Yeah, maybe it's not.
It's high desert.
Seriously. Was that high desert sport?
I'm not sure which one it was, but
pretty sure it was worsted.
Well, he's knit multiple all over stranded color work
he's knit.
So.
He's took a steadier pace for the knit alongs so we wouldn't tease him so much.
But we're going to anyway.
But
so.
now we're
teasing him about something else. And then and he's knit at least one other sweater and like half of another sweater since we started.
Yeah.
Which ruins my excuse for being behind.
Yeah, I know, right? But well, awesome. So hopefully when we do the next podcast, hopefully we'll have a better update for everyone. And we can let you know that Andi and I finished our sweaters and we are going to be wearing them out, right?
Yes, totally.
Right. Yeah. Totally going to do this. And Lee's going to finish all of her sweaters and Seymour, Andi, and Treasure sweater. Yeah, all the sweaters.
I think we're recording the next episode even more in advance because of holiday schedules. So
yes,
I don't predict we're going to be very far along. We'll see.
I believe in us, man. We can do it.
You can do it. You can do
it. Anyway. All right. Cool. Thanks, Andi. So, now I think we're going to go into our interview. We had a wonderful interview with Yura Kim. She is known as Knitboop on Instagram. She has several lovely patterns on the site, and she's in Déjà Yarn. She is fascinating, and we think you will love her as much as we do. So stay tuned.
It was a great interview. Love it when we get to talk to such awesome designers.
I know.
Yeah.
We've been really lucky.
Good interviews lately. Yeah.
So stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Hi, and welcome back. This is Stacey and Lee, of course. And we are here talking to one of our favorite people, Yura Kim, otherwise known as Knitboop. Hi, Yura.
Hello.
It's so nice to have you on here. We've been a fan of you for quite a while, I would say. I've been following you on Instagram for a very, very long time. So
thank you. I'm really glad to be here.
Yeah, it's nice to talk to you in person. So so let's get started. When did you start doing knitwear?
Oh boy. So I guess my first design was the KAL, which I released in September of 2019. I'd been knitting for about 4 years by then, and I remember it was kind of late summer. I was still in academia at the time, so I was operating off of summertime, not really a whole lot going on during the summer in academia. And I was noodling around on Instagram like you do. And I saw that Aroha Knits had a little free workshop for learning how to design your own knitwear. So I was like, okay, this seems fun, and I am bored and I have nothing else to do right now. So why not try a little design course? So that was my first design, the KAL. It was actually knit with some, knitpicks yarn that I had in my stash.
Yes, I'm familiar with this pattern.
Yes. And I just really got hooked onto the process and sort of another avenue for creativity it allowed. And I've stuck with it since.
Oh, I'm looking at design right now. That is an awesome design for first design. My first design was like garter stitch. Like it's a cabled cowl. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, Francois, I think is how you say her name. She has a really great process of doing it that you get to rely a lot on existing resources like stitch dictionaries and things like that. And I just kind of started with a cable design and then started switching some stitches around until I thought it looked okay and stuck it on a cowl. Awesome. And there we go.
Yeah, that's my favorite way to use stitch dictionaries. It's like you take it as a base and then you just like move some things around to kind of make it your own. Awesome.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
What's your favorite kind of design? Like stitch pattern based, or I see you have a lot of different. You have some color work based. You have lace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I feel like a lot of designers, they've figured out what their niche is. I don't think I'm there yet. So I like to kind of try different things a lot. There's still a lot of things in knitting that I'm learning, and so I like to try to incorporate those new things into my designs or projects. But I did start out with some Japanese stitch dictionary books that I picked up at my local Joann, and they have a lot of really beautiful cable lace work, and that's really what I love. I feel like I fell in love with color work second, but I also do really like that you get a lot more flexibility to express yourself through color work.
I love the Japanese stitch dictionaries. I think we still have a couple of them on the site, and I just love looking through them. They're just so beautiful.
Yeah.
And so intricate.
Yeah, definitely. And they're really great starters.
Definitely. What is your favorite kind of project to knit or to design?
Ooh, that's a really good question. And I'm not sure if I have a good answer to that.
That's all right.
Yeah, no, I kind of
Everything.
design / knit whatever I want. Yeah, exactly, everything. Um, I'm a fairly monogamous knitter, I think is the term for it. I typically have one, maybe two projects going at a time. So I like to have a more complicated pattern as well as a more sort of mindless knit. So usually I have like a stockinette hat as my mindless to go knit and something like a garment I'm working on as my complicated knit. So I do knit a lot of hats. I don't wear a lot of hats, funnily enough. A lot of them go to my partner or for donations and things like that. But I I just like the process of knitting hats.
No, totally understand.
Yeah.
So the first project we worked together in a collection was back in the spring, and that was the Trellis Tee or Trellis tunic. I think we called it a Trellis Tee on the site, I believe. But and it's like a lace garment. Do you remember how you came up with that really interesting lace pattern on it?
Yeah, so I kind of started with the stitch pattern itself. I was, looking through my stitch dictionary books to start with an inspiration. I saw some leafy patterns and, I think this is around the time when I started getting really into hiking and foraging outside of, all my knitting stuff I'm doing. And so I was really inspired by the botanical patterns. And I was like, how do I want to incorporate this into a pattern? And I started looking at Pinterest mood boards like you do.
Yep.
And there was a lot of vining, ivy, trellises and things like that. And it just got really inspired. I was like, okay, what if a trellis, but on your body?
Yeah.
And I was really into the sort of asymmetric look at that time as well. So that's kind of how the trellis tunic came to be.
Yeah, that's exactly what caught our eye. Excuse me, caught our eye when we first started looking at it was that asymmetrical design. You don't see that too often on a sweater, and it looked really beautiful. So, and it's definitely one of the most popular patterns from that collection. I will say, and I'm not just saying that because I was looking it up. I'm like, oh, look at that! A lot of people agree with us.
Thank you. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I especially like blending the asymmetry with kind of a classic looking lace design because you have like the classic. I'm trying to think of another word besides classic, but classic lace combined with with modern asymmetry. So I love that kind of combination.
Yeah, and it was a perfect spring tee for this collection. So that was part of our Lounge Act knits for our listeners who are listening.
And then most recently, you just had a super comfy, cozy looking hat pattern in our new Déjà Yarn collection, Bodeul. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, of course. So that is the Bodeul hat, and I designed it specifically for gift knitting. So my partner has a lot of extended family. They live slightly further north than we are. And they live kind of close to a large lake, so they get lake effect winter. And so I was thinking, what is something I could knit a lot of? It is engaging enough to keep me engaged and not bored out of my mind, but simple enough that I could knit it on the go if I needed to. And I thought of a classic cabled hat, but I was also really inspired by some of the other hat patterns I saw on Instagram where it was more, I suppose, modern. They had this very seamless brim. It was a 4-point taper. And what I didn't see was any of those kinds of hats with a cable pattern. So I was thinking, what if I, incorporated those two together? And I was just, fairly fresh off of the Trellis Tee, where the main stitch, the sort of highlight, was on the side. So I was like, okay, they have a 4-point hat. Hat's already divided into 4. Let's stick a cable in it and see what happens. And that is the Bodeul hat.
Yeah. I love that the cable's simple enough. There isn't even a chart because really there'd be no point in having a chart because it's just the same cable over and over. So like you said, you can travel with it, you can knit while watching TV or movies. But it's not boring. Yeah.
Exactly. And I wanted one where you wouldn't need a cable needle either because I tend to lose my cable needles when I travel. So I was like, okay, I can do cabling with 4 stitches without a needle. So
Lee and I have had many discussions about cabling with a needle and without a needle because
I
I'm
prefer
stubborn.
without a needle, no matter how big the cable is. 9-stitch
Oh,
cable,
God.
3-part cable. I'll just kind of make it work without a cable needle, usually, because I usually don't have one sitting next to me and I don't want to get up.
Fair enough.
And it was the perfect pattern to go in this collection because that was the idea behind it, was a stash buster, quick knitting, gift knitting, and it's perfect. I really love this hat too. I say that about everything, but I do really love this hat. I think it's wonderful. So, and then the name means hug.
So Bodeul is sort of an onomatopoeia in Korean, which means something soft and cuddly. So you would usually refer to it like a blanket or, like a really cuddly sweater, something that feels nice on your skin. And I sort of extrapolated the hug sentiment from that literal translation. Because, hats are just hugs for your head.
They are indeed. That's so cute. I love hearing about the reasoning behind the names, because naming gets really, we had a whole conversation on our last podcast about naming things, and it gets really complicated. So that's a wonderful story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's I guess one of the nice things about naming a lot of my designs after Korean words, I get to have a little throwback to my heritage, but also the names generally aren't taken.
Yep.
Makes it really good for SEO.
Yeah. That is the biggest issue we find, like, with pattern naming. So we try, but there's only so many words that we can use sometimes.
Exactly.
And then you are working on a new project that we are going to publish on the site sometime soon. Want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the new project is the Jinkies jumper. And I sort of started with the idea of Velma's sweater from Scooby-Doo. But I kind of wanted it a little longer because I wasn't sure how I felt about like a big oversized sweater with a skirt, because sometimes you just need something to throw on and not really worry about coordinating. So I just kind of extrapolated that sweater idea into a dress length. And I guess that's kind of how a lot of my design stars think of something like a character. What would they wear? I watch a lot of TV shows, so I look at inspiration from that. And it just kind of goes from there. But the Jinkies jumper, I knit the first sample with, I cannot remember the base name off the top of my head. Sooty Tweed, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. Yeah. Sooty Tweed in the color pumpkin pie, I think.
Oh, Provincial Tweed.
Provincial Tweed. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, so I knit the first sample in Provincial Tweed in the colorway Pumpkin Pie because Velma. And it just kind of went from there. And I was, I was talking with Stacey about the different yarn bases that are coming out. And one of them she was really excited about was the Woodland Tweed. And she let me know that there are new colors coming out. And I'm, again, kind of leaning into feeling very botanical this season.
Yeah.
This beautiful deep green that I'm currently working on the second sample with, and hopefully the pattern will be published with that as sort of the main yarn suggestion, because the cables are working up really beautifully.
Yeah.
Just to the listeners, I don't just like go on and on about Woodland Tweed on the podcast. I do it in real life too. So
it's a great base.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite yarns, so
I would imagine the cables would look a bit fuller and more squishy and happy in the Woodland Tweed versus Provincial Tweed.
Oh, absolutely. So the Provincial Tweed, I can see myself wearing it on maybe cooler autumnal months, but I'm really looking forward to when the weather gets cold enough for the Woodland Tweed version.
Oh, can't wait to see that.
Yeah, I'm very excited. That's why I wanted to make sure we brought that up on the podcast. Because I remember when you sent me that idea, I was very excited. So
that may or may not be live by the time you're listening to this. This might be a peek. It'll be slightly
sneak
in the
peek.
future. Yeah.
Yes.
So you might not find a link to this in the show notes, but you will find links to Yura's other patterns in the show notes, and so you can get to it from there.
Cool.
What else do you have going on? I'm excited to hear about a non-pattern design project, if you wanted to talk a bit about that.
Yeah, so we talked about this a little bit earlier, but another project I'm working on is Craftivity Club. I post about it a couple of times on Instagram, on my main Instagram, but it does have its own designated Instagram account, craftivity.club. And it is a website. Not sure of the exact terminology people use for it these days, but it's a site I'm developing for a multi-craftual project logging system. And a lot of this discussion happened when there were, concerns about Ravelry's redesign being not exactly inclusive for people with migraine or visual impairments.
Mm-hmm.
And so that raised the concern of whether we should have more options available to crafters. And then that sort of broadened into what are some of the options we have for crafters who are not primarily knitters or crocheters? Because as you know, hobbies tend to accumulate. Once you start knitting, you start crocheting, you start spinning, you start weaving. And
Start
so I realized there
sewing.
wasn't really exactly sewing as well. And then I realized there wasn't really a place where you could keep track of everything in one place. One thing Ravelry does really well is use the user-generated databases to create this very holistic and thorough experience for knitters and crocheters. And I know they have some support for spinning and weaving, but it's not designed with those crafts in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's understandable. A website can only do so much. But I started thinking about what if there was an alternative where we could log everything, anything and everything. So Craftivity Club is sort of my project, my side project where I'm the only developer, but I get a lot of feedback from users about what sort of features they would like to see in a project logging system. It's a little slow going because I am the only developer on it, and I do have a real person job in addition to working on it. But I'm really happy with how it's going. I would much rather get it done at a slower rate and do it properly.
That sounds so awesome. As someone who knits and sews and does dabbles in other things, I'm definitely extremely excited to check that out. And as many people have been, I've been really sad that Ravelry has been not very useful for the last few years. And I started my own PayHip shop for my own patterns, but that's just kind of where my patterns live. That's not a community or anything. So super excited about this. Were you already a coder and you got in, what's your background? How are you able to do this?
So my background actually was in academia. I was getting my PhD in social informatics, which I like to describe as software engineering, computer science without any coding parts.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah, so my focus was actually on qualitative and ethnographic research on online communities, and my special focus was on the online crafting community. So I was actually doing a lot of qualitative work on Instagram's knitting and crochet and yarn communities before I made the transition out of academia.
Wow.
I mastered out of my PhD program because during the early days of COVID, I decided that healthy work-life balance was not compatible with academia, unfortunately. And I transitioned into doing a 24-week coding bootcamp intensive where starting from zero, they train you to be a software engineer. And my focus was kind of in full stack development. The capstone project for the coding bootcamp was actually something called Scrap Swap. So we had to identify a problem space or do a clone of some existing website. I didn't feel like doing a clone because that was overdone. And so I wanted to really tie it into something I was interested in, which is obviously yarn. And so I did a sort of proof of concept prototype for a website where users could, register and log their scraps and swap those scraps because, as we all know, we end up with like partial skeins all the time. And what if you're only looking for 50 yards of a specific yarn? Then this could be a place. And so I got to use a lot of the information I created by asking a lot of my Instagram users, what would they want to see in a platform like this? And the knowledge that I gained during bootcamp and the capstone, and kind of transitioned that towards Craftivity Club. So hopefully in the future, a lot of the features from Scrap Swap will be present in Craftivity Club, like the ability to, mark specific partial skeins available for swapping or things like that.
Wow, that sounds awesome. Well, I'm kind of sad that you have to have a day job and you can't get it done faster, but that's the world we live in. So I understand. I'll be patient.
My day job, I'm also a software engineer, so it's nice because I get to learn a lot of sort of how things are done on an industry scope, and then apply those to Craftivity Club on the weekends.
Nice. Sounds like a good balance. Cool. Oh man. And looking around your website, I just wanted to note how you also have adorable stitch markers and other fun.
Oh yeah.
You have a Studio Knitboop and it's so cute.
My stitch markers are showing up tomorrow because I ordered some.
I saw your order, Stacey, and I was like, hey, it's Stacey.
Yeah. I need some spooky stitch markers, so I'm going to order some from my friend Yura. So,
oh, thank you.
You don't offer them all the time, though, correct? I don't want people to flood you with requests.
I offer them seasonally, so the Halloween ones will be available until the end of October. But I kind of rotate through my stock just because I like to play around with new materials. My partner, who is Gerbil's Miniatures online, I call him Gerbil's or Mr. Knitboop. He does a lot of 3D printing, 3D, sculpting and things like that. So he will pop in with studio collabs from time to time. The most recent Legend of Zelda collab, they were all 3D sculpted and printed and hand painted by him.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
That's amazing. I did not know that. That's amazing.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And I love that you get to collaborate with your partner too. That's fun.
Yes.
Wow. Right. Well, we will definitely link to everything in the show notes. I recommend everyone click around various links and shops. I feel like we talked about a lot of stuff you have coming up. Is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you have going on, you're excited about in the future?
I don't think so. The one main thing that is coming up is the Jinkies jumper, which I'm very excited for. It is currently in testing, and I hope to have more details out on all the socials soon-ish.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Yura, for coming on. It was great to talk to you and learn all about all the exciting stuff that you have coming up. If people want to follow you and keep up with everything you have going on, where's the best place to follow you?
I am most active on Instagram at Knitboop. That's knit and then BOOP. My website is also knitboop.com. You can find my patterns there, all my free as well as purchase patterns, as well as my Notions studio.
Nice. And then you had mentioned that Craftivity Club has its own separate Instagram. So if people follow that Instagram, then will they know updates about when it's coming and stuff?
Yeah, so Craftivity Club has its own Instagram, which is craftivity.club. I have links to sort of Patreon where people can, if they want, support me to help keep the alpha tests running and so on, and participate in alpha tests when they are live. Cool. I try to remember to post on Craftivity Club, but I'm really bad about remembering to do that. So no promises there.
Well, if there's any huge developments, I'm sure that's a way.
Yes.
In the future, down the road.
I'll definitely let people know if there's alpha testing or things like that in the Instagram.
Awesome. So excited. Well, thank you so much. It's great to talk to you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Yura.
Thank you for having me.
This podcast was originally created by Kelly Petkin.
It is produced and hosted by me, Stacey Winklepleck, and Lee Meredith.
Produced by Andi Satterland with additional production and editing by Chase Ryan.
Special thanks to Yura Kim for joining us today.
We recorded this episode in the Pacific Northwest, where we're still thinking about that sweater from Only Murders in the Building.
Indeed. From everyone here at Knitpicks, thank you for joining us.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual participants. They do not necessarily reflect the opinions or views of Crafts Group LLC or Premier Needle Arts.
All the yarn, tools, and patterns mentioned in this episode, along with all the inspiration a knitter could need, can be found on our website at knitpicks.com.
If you'd like to be on our podcast, leave us a voicemail. We'll be checking it regularly and using your calls in later episodes. To leave a voicemail, call 360-334-4847 and record your message. You can also record a voice memo on your phone and email us that audio file at podcast@knitpicks.com.
Like and follow us on your favorite social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube at Knitpicks.
Rate and review us wherever you listen to this podcast.
Until next time, happy crafting!